Wait, oh my gosh, my baby's so happy. Hi, I love you. Hi, Abby.
It's Christmas.
We sent back in, like, we can't have this, that and the other. And then the next I heard, it was out. They were like,
You've done it for us.
So
Hello, gorgeous boy. Hi, Smiles. Hi, Smiles. You're just the cutest little button, aren't you?
It's one of his favourite toys. It's just like the last remaining piece of one of those stackers. Lovely snowy day. Hello, welcome to One of Nine. I'm Maria Jones and this is Annabelle. Annabelle is married to Francis and they have 5 beautiful children. Annabelle has had quite a journey from when you were a feminist
Yeah. Back in the day.
to now a Catholic with lots of gorgeous children and lots of gorgeous challenges. Crosses,
Yeah.
joys and challenges, that's what I generally think the whole thing sums up to be. You are now married to Francis, who's in the military.
Yeah.
And this is very much familiar to you
This
because...
is very much familiar.
And do you know, actually, one of the lovely things about doing this, the channel, and finding out about, you know, people that I've known for a while, but didn't know all this information. there's sometimes just no reason to find out these things and just know where people come from. So that's been lovely.
Yeah.
So your dad.
Yeah. So my dad was away quite a lot when I was little. So he was off and about on ship doing all sorts of things. He worked on helicopters. So it's always been a really big part of our lives, which is really cool. Obviously, it's hard if your dad's away, but also the pride of him being part of it was really strong. So it's always been a really big part of our family.
So would you get involved
culture.
in things when you were a child?
We got to go to family days. I rode in a helicopter, which was best thing. Love it.
And did you live on site somewhere? Did you live on
so when I was first born, we lived on a patch like we do now, but then quite quickly we moved into a house in a village, not connected, because so how Francis does it is he changes every 2 years, but he changes location, which is what most of the army does. But in the Navy, in the part that my dad was in, he changed squadron within the same base. So we could be in one place. So we didn't do the moving thing when we were little, but we did do him being away a lot. So he was away for sort of up to 6 months at a time, which was like it's hard in its own way, but we loved that being part of our lives. So.
And you were Anglican. How much was that a significant part of your upbringing?
It was pretty significant because we lived in a small village where it's a lovely traditional English village. So the church is sort of the focal point, and there's a nice post office and a bakery and a butcher, and like it's a lovely little. And we went to a tiny little village school. We went to a lovely little school where there were like 20 students. Between 20 and 50 students at any one time. So it was a tiny little school, and it was attached to the church. So it was a really big part of our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like again, it was we really enjoyed being part of it. It was good.
So then you went to uni and you chose an interesting course.
So I did religious studies and English literature at Cardiff, because I was quite interested in Islam, and also because I was quite interested in feminism and feminist readings of texts. So we did a lot of Angela Carter, that sort of thing, and also sort of looking at gender within religions and all of that kind of stuff. So we did all sorts of that kind of thing. I don't think I did any theology. I didn't do anything about Christianity at all, but I did do.
And had you wanted to?
Not particularly, no, because I sort of felt like I was kind of aware of that. I wanted to do something a bit different. I was interested in Islam because it was such like a relevant part of the world stage. Feminism, queer theory.
What year was this?
There was a whole module on queer theory, which was very interesting as well. So I was quite well versed in that whole way of looking at the world. I went into the course wanting to love it, because that was sort of the background where I was from, and I was really keen on that being part of my worldview.
And also, in terms of the Islam aspect, were you interested in even maybe one day being Muslim? Was that something you thought, I'm really open-minded sort of thing?
I felt like I wanted to understand the worldview better from the point of view of not wanting to judge other people or not wanting to be unnecessarily like negative about people that I didn't understand and all of that sort of thing. So it was more from that point of view. I don't think I ever thought I would convert, but I was really interested in it. And I remain interested. And from the feminist point of view, sort of historically, it's an interesting way of looking at the world. So yeah, I did enjoy it, but it got quite tiring, because it's all bound up in postmodernism. Like there's a lot of Marxism, there's a lot of sort of power struggle, and there's a lot of postmodernism, which then leads to deconstructivism, whichever. Everything starts to fall apart, basically. So everything is about trying to tear apart systems or words or theories, because the standard tradition is seen as not where we want to be going as a society. So then everything is always geared towards taking that apart, like even right down to the language, which is why it's so relevant to English literature, because you're looking at things, you're deconstructing the language itself.
Are they open about that?
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's the theme. It's the theme. Like it's what we were doing. It's the whole point of it. And if you get to the point where you're like we looked at the culture as well, and you're looking at the culture that these people are living in, and their lives are also being deconstructed. And I just got to the point where I was just feeling sorry.
And what peoples
for
would
these
you be
people.
looking at? What?
All sorts of people. I mean, we did a queer theory module, so we were looking at people who were living in they were living like in a communal life where they were all being their own person. They were all dressing as they wanted, identifying as they wanted, doing their own thing, and it was like this utopia of freedom. And they were miserable. They were all miserable, and it was just so sad. And I really wanted to love it, because that's like what you do.
And that's how it's portrayed.
And that's how it's portrayed.
Very
and
attractive.
these people just were sad. They were sad people, and it was really hard kind of looking at that and looking at how it was actually playing out in their lives. And I know it's not the case for everybody, but the underlying philosophy of the worldview is pushing towards the breaking down of boundaries and the breaking down of lives, fundamentally pulling people apart. And it is sad. So there was that, which
Like the pulling apart of truth, I suppose.
yeah, I mean, that was the other thing, is that at that point I was still very much relativistic in my worldview. You know, everyone has their own truth and all truths are equal and all of this kind of stuff. By that time I'd met Francis, and we were together starting to explore things. Although he'd had a phase as a very aggressive atheist, he was starting to come back to the church, and he was...
So he was baptised Catholic.
He was baptised Catholic. He was brought up sort of semi-Catholic. He'd had a militant philosophical atheist phase where he'd gone to study philosophy at university. He was very much in a different kind of mindset. And he'd seen firsthand where living in that way takes you. So it takes you to dark places, like it takes you to difficult places. And he decided that he didn't want that. So he was trying to struggle his way back to the church. And I was encountering the church for the first time. So he was sure that
And separately, so he was coming back to the church.
Yeah, he was
and
coming
you were
back to the church. So we
exploring.
met actually at Mass. It was one of the first Masses he'd been to. And it was one of the first times I'd ever seen someone really praying, because that's not fair. Anglicans pray, but I'd not seen somebody like on their knees begging God. And he was not in a good place. He was begging, and that's the first time I'd seen that, and I was really struck by the sincerity of it. And then he saw me as well separately, and I didn't know that he'd seen me
at the same Mass.
At the same Mass. He assumed I was Polish because it was a tiny little town. He knew everyone in Lampeter. He knew all the girls in Lampeter, and he'd not seen me before. So he assumed that I must be like a Polish worker who'd come in. I was actually going out with one of his friends. So we met through that mutual friend. That relationship ended, and then we kept in touch. So
did it end because you fancied Francis more than him?
No, there was less of a gap than there should have been, possibly, but it was not directly correlated.
So how come you were there in this funny little village?
Because my boyfriend at the time was going to that university too, and he was brought up Catholic, and he was not going through a particularly good phase. So I thought, well, let's take him to church and see if that helps his life. I was just being nice, but I didn't expect to get anything from it myself.
Okay.
So I was just dragging him to church in a kind of like, come on, let's get you out of the house kind of way, which I'm not sure he appreciated, but it worked out quite well for me.
And please God, it's worked out well.
Yeah, please God. Yeah.
Okay, so you then started exploring with, dating Francis.
Yeah. So he
Exploring
thought
the faith.
that truth is real. And we had a lot of arguments about this because I was hard-line relativist.
And this is the breaking point for lots of people, isn't it?
Yeah.
They can't bear this idea of truth.
There being one
And
truth.
it's like Pontius Pilate, saying what is truth.
So the difficulty is that Francis did a philosophy degree and he's extremely good at arguing. So, so as much as I try and argue back, he always has an answer. So eventually I had to concede that truth must necessarily exist. And from that point, then you ask, so what is the truth? So then it doesn't take very long to get to Catholicism as the answer.
Okay, so Felix, where do you think we should tie this to? It's thinner, but I believe it's stronger. If I just tie it off at the top and then cut off the slack, we can then reattach some of the paracord. Felix, where's the paracord gone? We should be able to just hoist it exactly as it was. Right, bosh. This is why Felix scouts and knots are really important, because it does enable you to do a whole bunch of stuff.
There's talking to Francis about what truth is, and then I was also going to mass with him at the chaplaincy while he was trying to bring himself back to the church. And I was supporting him like a good girlfriend. I didn't, again, see that I would get anything from it, but I was being nice and supportive.
Yeah.
So he was dragging himself back. So I was going to mass on one hand, and then I was going to these lectures on the other hand, and then just the differences in the lives I saw. I don't think any of the lives were easier than any of the others, but it was more about the attitude with which they were lived.
Like the acceptance of suffering and the hope.
Yeah, the hope and the quiet joy as well as the loud party.
Yeah.
You know, there's a difference between the two, and there's a difference between how you feel underneath. So there was that. And then the chaplain there kind of cottoned on to the fact that I wasn't Catholic and that I might be interested potentially one day, and was quite canny and offered me a job as a secretary, which was lovely. But it meant that then I was going to daily mass because part of the job was I worked for him for like 4 hours or something. So did 3 hours of work in the morning. He'd do the speediest 20-minute mass, half in Latin, half in English, just like in the little house chapel just down the corridor. So I was sitting in the office, I could see the Blessed Sacrament like in its tabernacle from where I was sitting, like just down the corridor in the little chapel. And it was beautiful. And it was such a blessed time. And if you're living in that, like if you're there all of the time and you've got the mass there all of the time, it's very difficult, I think, not to convert, because there's just the beauty.
The presence of God.
The presence of God is there. So then, like, what else can you do?
Grace comes.
Grace comes. And I was pretty miserable when Francis and I were first together, and everything just melted away. Like the hardness and the, you know,
And looking back now, the sadness or misery, what do you think that was because of? I imagine there's like some sort of lack of hope, though, if you just think, is this it?
Yeah, pretty much that, I think. Just because you're going from, I think, the thing with school is, particularly if you're quite good at school and you're good at doing what the teachers say and everything's all very nice and, you know, lines up well for you, then you always do what you're told and you do it really well, and then you get the grades and it's lovely, and then you get to the end of it and you're like, now what? Like
an anticlimax.
An anticlimax, like a massive anticlimax. And I felt really lost, I think. I just didn't know what it was for or what I was trying to do. So then I think everybody needs a reason for, you know, a reason to be, a reason to do, a reason, and that's not just yourself, because I knew that wasn't enough, you know, like.
Yeah, that is the dream of the secondary school. You're working towards getting 4 A's at A level.
And then you get them and you're like, now what? And it just like, and Cardiff was it's a funny city. It's very big and it's very anonymous. I just felt, my lectures had 280 people in. I felt completely anonymous. And I didn't feel like drinking or partying or whatever was enough. Like, I was happy to go out, but it wasn't, like, it's not, what's it for?
You had the God-sized gap in your heart, didn't you? Which we all have.
Which we all have.
Lord. But it was
and you need to fill with something.
somehow very obvious at that time. And maybe just being stripped back from family and other things that would have just otherwise just kept you happy.
To buffer it, yeah. Because we were part of a close family unit. Like, I was close with my mum and my sisters. And it was like, it's just lonely. And
I think that's the thing as well, isn't it? If everything's fine, then you can believe anything.
Yeah.
You can believe anything, you can do anything, you can go out partying and say, yeah, this is great, I'm happy. And you've got no financial worries or, happy relationships and that sort of thing can be okay. And that, like you say, can buffer it. But then when something tough happens and there's all the different things, whatever it was for you, like the loneliness for you at that time.
Yeah.
That is the thing that then you think, hold on, why?
Yeah.
Or what?
So where's this going?
There, yeah.
And, university, I went because it's the thing that you do. It's just where you go. I didn't really have a reason to be there. Like, I knew it wasn't going to lead to a job because I knew jobs weren't really valuing degrees by that time. So then what's it for? Like, it's just drifting, isn't it? So I needed something. And I was grateful to find the church.
What were your few hurdles, if there were any, to then just saying, right, that's it, I want to be a Catholic? And I appreciate it's really difficult coming from...
It's difficult because being Anglican felt like being part of the country's fabric. You're fully in the village. It's the church is the heart of the village and it's part of the whole community. And it's so becoming Catholic felt like turning my back on my upbringing, on my Englishness. And I know now, historically, that's not the case. I know that the church actually that we were in for the whole of my childhood used to be Catholic. So it's not like, it's actually not turning your back on Englishness, but it felt like it at the time. It's such a foreign thing. It feels very continental and very strange. It felt quite dismissive of my family upbringing in a way. I didn't want it to.
And you're a sweet, lovely heart, and you wouldn't have wanted to hurt.
Oh yeah, like, you don't want to offend people. Yeah. It's not what it's for, and I don't like that. But
some of the worst suffering, just think, and we're going to get onto that as well because of
mortification and like putting myself out there.
You can't align everything. Everything aligns all the time.
And putting myself out there and actually like taking a stand for something is not either. I spent my whole life being nice to people and sort of saying yes and going along with whatever's happening.
Yeah, and truth is whatever anyone thinks it is. Yeah.
And if you get to a point where you actually stand up and you say, actually, no, this is what I think. Yeah. That's actually really different, and it's quite disconcerting having never done it before. That was quite hard. But I mean, it's my family were supportive. My mum came to my confirmation. I think she thought it was a phase, but it's not been a phase.
Well, I suppose you'd gone from being big into being, well, not necessarily big, but you're doing a course at university that's very much revolved around being a feminist. And then, really trying to live that sort of idealistic life that they're sort of painting all over everything. And then maybe she just thought, okay, now you're trying to be a Catholic. You're just doing that thing for a while. And then maybe you'll go back to being a feminist at some point.
Yeah, I think she thought it would just calm down. But
you'll realise that it's just all stuffy men.
It is just so
whatever
not.
It is that
it's just so not.
And rules and how judgmental.
Yeah.
All those things. But you've not turned back at all in that time. So then you're dating Francis, you become Catholic. Were you married when you became Catholic?
No. So he was quite keen for it not to be linked to him. So although he was brought up Catholic and he was also re-entering the church, every time I asked him about it, he was like, I'm not talking about this, because he didn't want me to link it to him in my head in case we didn't last. So he wanted me he wanted me to be Catholic for my own sake and for nothing to do with him, because he knew I was nice and I do whatever people want me to, So he did not want it to be about him. So he just refused point blank to answer any of the questions. So he made me go and talk to the other people. So I went to talk to the other people. But he was, and someone suggested he might be my sponsor, and he was like, absolutely not. And I think that was really valuable. So, psychologically, if nothing else, so I know it's not him telling me what to do. It's
and then
very
also
much
that's
me.
in history. The children know that it wasn't. When things get tough, you question things, don't you?
Yeah, and ultimately you end up. Ultimately, it is you that is talking to God, so it needs to be you. It's not you through other people. It does need to be you at the bottom of the day. So
and this is the theme of everything you then. So you had what seemed to be a really tricky time in life. And you got through and you met Francis and you got married and then everything should just be sunshine and roses. And I know that's sort of cliche to say it, but...
so much harder, but so much better. Because my life was so easy until that point.
It really gave me something to work towards.
I converted, he joined the army, we got married. It was massively intense, but...
And then was it when you were newly married, you could he had got a position in the...
He was in the household cavalry.
Yes, very cool.
So the ones on horses with the shiny helmets. It's very cool. It's extremely long hours. So he was getting up between 4 and 4:30 each morning, depending on which shift he was on, either 4 or 4:30. And then often not getting back from between 10 and midnight each night. Sometimes he'd stay overnight. It was...
How many days?
Really
5
intense.
days a week?
No, 7 days a week.
Oh my God.
So his time off was measured in hours. So he'd either get a 24 every 3 weeks or a 36. If you're really lucky, you get a 36 off. So it was intense. It was a hard job. So I spent lots of time with him in the cleaning room because otherwise I wouldn't have seen him. So I'm quite good at polishing. And that was fun.
I think, hearing about early marriage stories, it reinforces that the early marriage, when you have these challenges, it's forming the foundations, isn't it?
It's
really
sort of absolutely foundational.
Forging those foundations.
Yeah.
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 You have to have a challenge.
So you work together.
Yeah.
You make it work together. So that's what we did.
And what a romantic thing to do, polish things.
Polish kit under strip lights at 11 p.m. and then go to McDonald's on the way home. And I was really glad to be there for it because otherwise you wouldn't understand. If I hadn't been there, I just wouldn't understand what a formative part of his life it was. And it still really impacts him now, having had that experience. And then Felix came along.
How long
and
was
then
that?
we were
a year or something?
No, it was 3 or 4 years.
Golly.
It was really long because they kept prolonging it. And then he was trying to commission as an officer because we were like, this is not sustainable. We can't live like this forever. This is ridiculous.
So we're now getting the baby to polish the boots.
No, Felix came into the cleaning room with us. There's photos of him with a sword.
He was really...
It's really fun. So then he was trying to commission as an officer. So eventually he got to the point where he was able to commission. And then by that time Henry had been born. And then, so he was off at Sandhurst, which is a 9-month course. The course where you learn how to do the officer thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to just the soldier thing.
You've got Felix and Henry.
And we've got Felix and Henry at home.
What chapter are we on of the suffering?
Oh, well,
suffering.
No, it was not the best chapter, that one, because it's always better when you're doing it together.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really
and
together.
That's that is
because it's so designed for single men. It was so intense, the course. He could barely even speak to me. He was so in the zone and he was so worried about not making it through and going back to
having to do it again or something. Oh.
That he was absolutely 110% committed. So he went all in for everything. So I remember ringing him at one point because Felix had burnt his hand. So I had to take him to A&E and I was like,
You don't drive?
I don't drive. I've got a screaming tiny baby and I've got a screaming toddler and it's all going wrong. I rang Francis. He was like, yeah, okay, well, I've got some polishing to do, so we'll talk later. I'm like, okay, fine, bye. Because he was just so in the zone with the course. And I understand it's okay, but it was not easy at the time.
That's then you and God again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your love story. Your love story with our Lord.
Just hanging on. We used to talk about it's the church is like a life raft, like a little bit of shrapnel in the sea after a shipwreck. And you're just both hanging on, well, if we just don't let go, it'll be all right. It's been how we envisage our lives. It's just hang on, and it'll be quite fun. But it just don't let go, it'll be okay.
You do make it look fun.
It is fun. It is fun.
And your home is gorgeous, and the children are gorgeous, and they're so interesting, and they do lovely
They're
things.
great. Yeah,
And I
they're
love that you
great.
do crafting in the night time. By the way, crafting before bed, what a cool idea.
Yeah, it works nicely. It settles
Never
everything
ever
down.
heard of this. Maybe lots of people do it.
I don't know.
I just think book time in your room. Bye. Have a lovely time. I just think by the end of the day, at a certain point, and you still do that at a certain point, don't you?
Yeah, no, it's because I don't want
Crafting.
to be involved.
Yeah.
So I just,
But then I feel like I would probably
you go.
need to be involved. But anyway, you've made it
just
work.
get used to it. So they just do it on their own and it's fine.
That's really cool.